Tips from a seamstress. Today's alteration is taking in the sides of a dress. Please forgive me, I do have to use white on white. I don't have enough time to do it in a different color and then redo the dress. But I'm going to teach you everything that I do. Now keep in mind, if you're using this to get better at your skill, please read the comments because many talented seamstresses add what they do and what works best for them. We all think differently and we all process information differently. So my way might not work, but check through the comments to make sure because someone else might have a tip that might click with you. All right, let's get started on today's alteration. We're working on taking the sides of this dress in. Now what I do is I put a pin this way. This tells me my stop point. And then I put a pin in the waist and then I put a pin in the side. These tend to be two different measurements. Not all of us are built with an exact hourglass. A lot of us are kind of straight from under the arm down to the waist. So we have to make up for that difference so that the dress will feel snatched. As I take in the sides of a dress, I build in some safety measures because I know that I'm imperfect. I leave the seam allowance inside. I don't cut it. And there's a particular way to do this so that it doesn't look like that's what you did. And the reason is, every once in a while, there's a dress that is either too tight and doesn't fit right. And I do not need the customer to be angry. I usually tell them, make sure you try it on to make sure it fits you before the event so that I can fix it. You get one free fixing. And I do that so they have an idea that a dress might need to be altered. And then they're not so angry. And then inside, I build myself that safety so I can let it out without a problem. Because once you cut it, it's not like hair. It don't grow back. All right, so we're going to start dismantling the dress. One very important thing that I do is I measure this distance from the pin to the edge with my seam gauge. And I take that, I have 1 inch here, and I write that in on a piece of paper. So I put T for top, 1 inch. And then I put my waist, take my measurement, 3/4. So 3/4 of an inch. Okay. Next thing I do is I take out my pins because I don't need them. I cut off any tags. All right. And then I start seam ripping. And I seam rip this edge. And you want to give yourself a good margin because it gets very difficult if you make this too short. Now, there's a very interesting stitch. It's this one, and this allows to keep the lining inside. I'll show it real close so you guys can see. It is this white stitch right here, this one. So we're going to cut a little bit of that out. We're not going to cut where it joins. We're going to cut this top stitching out, this top stitching. And that's where I want to get a seam ripper. So I get a seam ripper and I pick right at that thread. Pull, I snip, but it's still attached. See? Still attached, and I took out about 1 inch. We're going to need that when we want to repair it on the inside. Do the same to the other side. Okay, arm 2. All right, now we're going to turn the dress inside out. If we are blessed, the lining is not attached. And we are. Da, 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 da. Turn inside out. This is what we have. Here's our armpit. All right, let's take it to the machine and let's fix these sides. So what we want to do is we want to transfer our measurements to our garment. So we're going to take our seam gauge, and we were at 3/4 of an inch at the waist. And we're going to take our little marking pen, whatever tool we like the most. We're going to make a little mark. We want to stop right here at the beginning of the pocket. So I want to make a mark because that's my starting point. And then here, we're going to go 1 inch from this seam. Okay. And now we're going to start sewing. Next thing we're going to do is take this stitching out so that we'll be able to butterfly and open up this seam. Now we're going to do the same with the lining. Doesn't matter where we start with the lining, we can be approximate because there's no pocket in our way. And yes, these won't match up. That is fine. We will correct that. Again, we're going to open this up. So I went back and I serged my ends, and what serging does is that it prevents the fray, especially on the lining. The lining will tend to fray, so I serged my ends. Not necessary, but it is a good thing to do. If you don't have a serge end, you can use an overlock stitch that your machine may or may not have, I don't know, or a zigzag stitch, but you just want to keep the lining from fraying. Next we're going to do is we're going to sew this little hole together right here. That. And in order to sew that, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do one side at a time. So we're going to take this and move it over to this direction. Again, take this, and move it over. And we're only going to sew from here to here. I went forward and back, make a lock stitch, and I stop right there. Make a lock stitch, stop. Now we move everything over in the opposing direction. So we flip this under, we flip that to the other side, and we sew now all of this over. So we have this over here, and we have this over here, and we start right here down. Okay. Now we butterfly these open like so, and we take this one and we open it up like so, and we take the other side and we open that up. So now we open up. And we have this open, and we have on this side, we have this open. And now we're just going to put a stitch right here, right in the center. We only want to go about 1/4 of an inch. We really don't want to go any more than that. That's it. Okay. Let's take a look. So we spread it open and we iron it nice. Okay. And this is our armhole now. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this in just a touch, and we're going to put a stitch right here, right in the ditch. That'll keep this lining from rolling out. So now you can see the difference. This is the side I have not altered yet. It's still open. This is what it looks like. And this is the side that has been altered. So this is what you've got. Now, if you can see this imprint right here, this is the seam allowance that's allowed on the inside. Had we taken this and sewn it into here, this would pull terribly, and you'd have all these little folds. It would actually pinch like this because it's trying to keep this in here. So by taking this flap and putting both flaps to this direction and sewing from here to here, and then taking these two flaps and folding in the other direction from here to here, and then butterflying it open and just doing a tack, is how we get a nice, beautiful armhole that looks like nothing was done. And here is our inside. So this technique allows for you to have that safety inside in case it is too small. You can quickly go in and take everything apart and put it back together, and you've lost nothing because you didn't cut out the seam allowance. And that's always very good, because in case you do make a mistake, which happens, you can at least say, don't worry, I'll fix it and I'll take care of that for you immediately. And that always makes a customer feel better. Have a good day, guys, and enjoy this tip.